we go to Malkiel's sixth rule. Never forget that diversity reduces adversity. This is a rule that focuses once again on that marvelous concept of diversification. So let's look at an example that he quotes from William F. Sharpe, a Nobel Prize winning investment author and economist. At one time, each ship sent from London to bring back spices from the Orient was financed by one merchant. If the ship happened to sink, the merchant or investor lost everything. But if several merchants pooled their resources, with each taking partial interests in several ships, risk could be greatly reduced with no diminution in overall expected returns. 10 people own a ship, and then we own 10 ships. Effectively, we are owning one ship, but it is distributed. The ownership pattern is distributed. Such pooling could be accomplished in a number of ways. One of the simpler procedures involved the issuance of ownership shares, with each investor holding a diversified portfolio of shares in several ships. This rule of Malkiel's speaks about the importance of diversification. First, diversify across the four major asset categories recommended for the common investor: cash, bonds, stocks, real estate. Then diversify your holdings within each category. Cash investments do not usually need to be diversified. This is because cash is legal tender guaranteed by the government. Unless you're talking about Venezuela or Zimbabwe, rest of it's fine. Extending this logic a little further, near cash assets like money market holdings and saving bank accounts in mainline banks do not need too much diversification. Where bonds are concerned, in the Indian context, the term would include small savings, bank deposits, and debt mutual funds. Diversification is not required in small savings and other guaranteed investments. Diversification is certainly required and recommended for non-guaranteed bond products, which would include bank deposits. If you have 10 lakhs in bank deposits, there is no need for 1 lakh in 10 banks. But instead of 10 lakhs in one bank, 2 or 3 banks would be probably a reasonable distribution. Diversification is very highly recommended for investments in real estate and real estate mutual funds. Diversification is perhaps the most important for stock market investment. There are enough horror stories where people have lost heavily when stock market fads and bubbles led them into concentration. From the tulip bulbs to the South Sea bubble to more recently the technology craze and the craze for real estate bonds, which led to subprime lending, and then the global financial crisis. We have seen this kind of thing happening. During the technology boom of 1998 to 2000, it was the investors who concentrated in tech stocks who lost the most. Similarly, employees of companies such as Enron and WorldCom, who invested all their retirement funds in shares of their own companies, ended up losing everything. In fact, this thing crops up from time to time in the case of people with tech companies, etc. Should I invest in my employer's shares? The arguments are, I'm working for this company. The work environment is good. I'm happy with my job, my colleagues, the company. I know how the company is doing. Of these statements, if you're happy, we take your word for it. If your boss and your colleagues are good, we'll take your word for it. If you're happy with the overall employment situation, we believe you. Fourth point, I know what is happening in my company. There, I would not take your word for it at all. Not one employee, I'm not talking about data entry operators. I'm talking about senior level managers. Forget that. The board of directors of Satyam Computers did not know what was happening in the company, that their balance sheet was a work of fiction, was not known to them until they got a fax message that morning from Mr. Raju saying that there is no balance in our sheet. Okay, so you can call it a balance sheet, but there was no balance in the sheet. So when they got that fax message, that's when they knew, okay, we are straight looking at oblivion. So the question arises, every good author, including Malkiel, will tell you, one of the worst things you can do is invest in shares of your own company. Just because you're getting ESOPs, just because you're getting other things. Let's look at this a little further. One employee of Enron started a 401k plan which had an option to purchase Enron common stock. The company also matched the employee contributions up to the same limit with the match paid in Enron stock. At one time, the retirement kitty of this employee was worth 2.5 million US dollars. This was a lady who was just somewhere middle level or lower middle level. $2.5 million was the retirement kitty. She had come on television boasting about this. After the failure of Enron, her retirement kitty of US dollars 2.5 million was reduced to zero, and she was also now jobless. This is the danger, the double whammy. No savings and no job. Okay, you're a pauper straight away. Shockingly, many US companies in the S&P 500 index have about half of their employees' 401k assets invested in their own stock. This makes it even more imperative that employees take charge of their retirement plan and enforce diversification as an essential cornerstone of the retirement plan. The questions get asked to me. I am an employee. The HR department is offering me ESOPs. Whenever I say I don't want, they look at me strangely. You're not investing in the shares of your own employer. Okay, will it affect my prospects with the company? Will it affect my career? The only answer I can give is, because you're employed with that company, if you think just to keep good relations, you need to buy a stock, buy a very, very limited amount. Do not consider that even as part of your portfolio. And always have it in mind, if 2 or 3 years later you are changing companies and you still carry that stock, and the time has come when all the dates are over for lock-in, and you can get rid of that stock, and that stock is not a stock you would have chosen normally in building your portfolio, then get rid of it immediately. And probably use that money to do a similar exercise with your next employer in the same situation. But never allow that to go beyond a particular point. It should be an insignificant part of your portfolio. The rest should be diversified. The rest should be diversified. And I know for a fact how difficult it is. Because I have had some former clients, former relations, former students who got excellent jobs in the United States. And some of them were engineers, some of them were from professions other than finance or commerce, but they were very interested in investment. They used to attend all my seminars and workshops and classes. They have read the books. One of them told me an incident where when he started seeing where his money is going, everything was as arranged by the company, with some costly brokers, huge fees, good deal of it in the company's own stock. He was furious. So he dashed out an email to the HR department saying, what is this? Who has formulated this? This is against all principles of investment. So the HR people were very offended. So they asked him, are you saying we are with such a big company, it's supposed to be a great investment company? Are you saying you know more than that? He said, of course I'm saying I know more than that. Are you prepared then to, if we call for a meeting, you'll attend and give your views and tell them why they're wrong? Of course I'm prepared. Nobody had ever spoken like that, and this fellow was at that time in his late 20s. On the day of the appointment, this man was there in the room, and on one side he had leveled 6 or 7 investment books with all bookmarks kept in there. And the company representatives came fully suited and booted, and there were the 1 or 2 directors of his company sitting there just to listen. So they said, you are an engineer, you are just 29 years old, what do you know about? Immediately said, I may not know, but do you know more than Burton Malkiel, Benjamin Graham? We started showing them the books. I'm thorough with these books. Okay, who in your company knows more than them? Who in your company has written books that are considered investment classics? Then he came out with statistics of how active management, how their own funds, he had done the research of their own funds, how 70-80% of their funds had underperformed the S&P 500 index. How a simple index fund. They were shocked. They were shocked. And then he turned sarcastic. He told them, you guys know nothing about investment, and you are a very low level character sent by your company. You fellows are the only salespersons. Confirm it. Show me your visiting cards. And he showed the visiting cards to his own directors. It was all marketing executives. They are being sent for a meeting where investment is being discussed, mind you. They know nothing. They did not even know what those books were. So I said, now forget it, I am not going to waste my time on you. He actually took charge of that meeting. You send somebody in your company who knows about investment. So the marketing fellows rush out. Phone, there are people who know about investment. He is quoting these names. He's got each book 400 pages. There are some 8 books. We can hardly see his face behind the books. And he is quoting this and quoting that, and he is saying that he has done a study of our own funds. 70-80% of them are underperforming the S&P 500 index. So we cannot handle this. Why don't you guys come? And you know what the response was? No, we are not coming. And that was the day where that company got rid of these people and shifted their entire employees to Vanguard Mutual Fund. And things improved after that. His own directors came and thanked him after about 3-4 years after this happened many years back. They said, now we are seeing that our own retirement kitties are performing a little better. How much diversification is enough in the stock market? There is a disturbing trend in India and elsewhere that equity portfolios should not exceed a dozen stocks. John Bogle recommends about 20 stocks, provided they are from different sectors, if you are picking up stocks individually. Benjamin Graham recommends a diversification across a minimum of 30 stocks. Burton Malkiel says that it may take up to 100 different stocks to reduce the risk of stock market investment to prudently low levels. Not only should the stocks be different, but sufficient diversification across various economic or industrial sectors should be ensured. However, Bogle, Jason Zweig, Malkiel, and Warren Buffett are unanimous in advising that for a normal investor, there is nothing like investing in a total stock market index fund. Today, a total stock market index fund in the US would contain about between 4 and 4,500 stocks. But for you, it is one single fund. You don't have to worry about that diversification. In other words, diversification across each and every sector and stock in the entire market, of course, in proportion to their market capitalization. You have to buy the market, you have to cover the market when you're investing. Now, I know we have problems in India of liquidity, of other things. For me, my minimum diversification would be ideally a low cost index fund covering the NSE or BSE 100 index. Unfortunately, we don't have these funds in India. There is one fund today that does invest in the NSE 100, I think, costs are not low. Costs are very high. Costs are very high. So our own equity investment model, when we advise, we say minimum is 60 stocks, minimum. At least 20 different sectors. All the stocks can't come from one sector. 20 sectors, 3 stocks per sector, 20 into 360, that is fine. With demat systems in India, you do not have to worry about tracking your portfolio, valuation of your portfolio, crediting of dividend warrants today is directly to the bank account, change of address, bank details, email IDs, telephone numbers. It is only to be done at one point. You don't have to write to 60 companies like in the old days you had to do it. We have come a long way in improved systems. Change in the demat account, you can have 110 stocks in your portfolio. Change your address in the demat account, within 24 hours, 48 hours, your address is changed in the records of all the companies because all these companies are online with the depositories. Change bank account, same thing. So all these things can be done. Burton Malkiel recommends investing for retirement through well-diversified mutual funds. For US investors, Malkiel recommends some diversification internationally. For example, investments spread across the US, Europe, and the emerging markets. However, Malkiel recommends international diversification only for investors of substantial means. Malkiel also recommends diversification across time, that is regular investments over long periods. We have discussed that earlier today. Systematic investment plans are perhaps the best examples of diversification across time. Always think of each systematic investment as a diversification across a different point of time. Then you'll appreciate it much, much better. Systematic investment is also called dollar cost averaging in the US. Systematic investment will not solve all your investment problems. No plan can protect you against a loss in market value during declining stock markets. A critical feature of systematic investment is that you have both the cash and the courage to continue investing during the bear markets as regularly as you do in better periods. No matter how awful things look, you must not interrupt the autopilot nature of the plan, or you will not get genuine value at lower levels. Malkiel recommends increasing systematic investment whenever the market declines by 20 to 25% from the level at which the systematic investment plan was started. The worst thing you can do is to panic and sell when the market declines. Systematic transfer plans would ensure that you do not run out of cash over equity time horizons. So whenever you have doubts like that, always go for a systematic transfer plan. For people in business, for example, where the businesses are not stable and where there is no minimum discernible or ascertainable cash flow per month, there are these cyclical businesses. Most of our sales take place in 3 months, 4 months. So at that time, collect the cash, put it into debt funds, register systematic investment plans that are like you to systematic transfer plans that are likely to tide you over for the rest of the year. For the stock market as a whole, Newton's law has always worked in reverse. What has gone down has always gone back up. So, yes, there is this famous thing called the Warren Buffett investment quiz. Let's look at it. 3 questions. This is what Warren Buffett says. If you plan to eat hamburgers throughout your life and are not a cattle producer, should you wish for higher or lower prices of beef? So anything we are consuming regularly, we would always want the prices to be lower. Likewise, if you are going to buy a car from time to time but are not an auto manufacturer, should you prefer higher or lower car prices? That's the second question. These questions, of course, answer themselves. But now for the final exam. If you expect to be a net saver during the next 5 years, should you hope for a higher or lower stock market during that period? Most investors get this one wrong. Even though they are going to be net buyers of stocks for many years to come, they are elated when stock prices rise and depressed when they fall. This is the power of sentiment. In life in general, 50% discount, even if that item was not on our purchase list, we will go there because of that signed 50% discount. But the market gives you a 50% discount, no, we want to run away. So this is a beautiful way of presenting the argument by Warren Buffett. Investing in a broad portfolio of stocks is a far less risky proposition than putting all your eggs in one basket. Perhaps a coin flipping example will help make the point. Supposing a $100 stock has a 50-50 chance of either moving up to $220, that's a 120% return, or falling to zero, which is a 100% loss. So this is your option, 120% return or a 100% loss. We can think of the situation as a gamble of $100 based on the toss of a fair coin. If the coin comes up heads, you get 220. Your investment is 100, remember. If it tails, you get 0, which means you lose your 100. In probabilistic terms, the gamble gives you a 10% return. The 10% return is calculated like this. 50% of 120, that's your 50% chance. You get 60 profit, minus 50% of 100, which you can lose. That's a 50 loss. So the remainder is a 10% probabilistic return. You have a 50% probability of making 120, 50% probability of losing the entire 100. This looks like a reasonable deal since the odds are in your favor, because plus means you're getting 120, minus means it's 100. But with an unfavorable flip of the coin, you lose your whole investment. This may be an unacceptable risk. Now suppose there are 10 different stocks, all offering the same odds and the same payoffs. You invest 1,000 totally, but in lots of 100 in each stock. 10 different fair coins will be tossed. In each case, a head will take your 100 to 220, tails 100 to 0. On average, 5 tosses will be heads, producing profits of 600. On average, 5 tosses will be tails, producing losses of 500. On average, therefore, you make $100 net profit on your investment of 1,000, equal to the probabilistic rate of return, but at vastly lower risk. So when you diversify, think of that ship's example. One ship does not come back, I'm gone. I'm with 10 others, one ship does not come back, 10% loss. Even 2 ships don't come back, 20% loss. We can survive. Okay. Now think of this example, little different context. 10 tosses. 10 tosses. Probably my chances are much better. The average is much better. The only way you can lose your entire stake is to have all 10 coin tosses come up tails, which is a highly unlikely event with a fair coin. You can try it yourself. But you can argue that when we flip a coin 10 times, sometimes it can be something like 7 tails and only 3 heads, which means we will lose. This itself should give us an idea about diversification. How do you prevent this from happening? Increase the number of coin tosses. Just increase. So a more diversified portfolio. The greater the number of coin tosses, the greater the likelihood of a 50-50 result between heads and tails. Similarly, in a very well diversified equity fund or a total stock market index fund, a situation has never arisen where all companies have failed at the same time. It did not happen even in the world wars.